We've got 5 bass myths that are going to explode faster than a guitar player being told he actually has to practice his rhythm chops. Metal Bass Monday, Mythbusters Edition. So, the channel updates. I know I've been warning about it for ages, but as you can kind of see if you've been following the show, I'm finally in the new studio and vaguely set up, so a lot of the new content I've been talking about and promising is going to get underway here pretty soon. A big expansion of things and a big expansion of the stuff I'm able to deliver for patrons too. Thank all of you. And to remind you, or for new people that are tuning in, I'm going to be doing a series that's going to cover everything from when you start a band to how to write your songs, what should be going on in your mind as you're doing it, how that affects your recording, all the way through the songwriting and recording process to final mastering, to releasing, branding, everything. It's going to be the most complete tutorial and study series that's been on YouTube. I've researched it, and there's going to be nothing like it. I'm also going to be transcribing and handing out some of this stuff to the patrons with the actual tracks that I'm using in the songs that I'm going to deliver. We're going to walk through a song, and you're going to see the whole process right up to me delivering one that's going to get released. And you'll be able to get the tracks, try out your mixes, things like that. So some great stuff for patrons coming up, and also some pieces of a bass solo that I'm going to be recording at the same time and showing you how just an instrumental piece works. So that's going to be in process here. It's going to be a big undertaking, so thanks so much for hanging with me and making the show something really vital and awesome that encouraged me and told me that this would be worth doing. Now, next up, if you've been following this, you also know that a little while ago I became an artist endorsing with AMT Electronics. They've sent me some new stuff again. More stuff again is coming. I showed off some of it before, and I've done some reviews, but there's some new things that are coming out, and they just got those to me, and I figure I'd show you what's going to be coming up as far as some gear demos and shootouts and stuff. Really impressive stuff. First is a preamp that I have liked for a long time is the Alembic, which is out of production, and you really can't find them, and when you do, they can be kind of pricey. Again, with this series, with the tiniest pedals you've ever seen in your life. I mean, let me get that in there. This is the Alembic bass simulated in this with an actual tube. And I still don't know how they fit stuff in the size thing. I mean, look at it. It's like the size of my finger, for God's sake. But that's going to be very cool. I just got this, and I'm going to put this together with the O bass, which is the RNG 200 simulation, and put those together and see how those do, along with their kind of mainstay being the bass crunch pedal. That is 2 channels plus drive and distortion. It's got a cab sim built into it. We've got an effects loop and return. You've got a DI out. You've got a control out. It's an impressive piece. So I'm looking forward to really diving into these and then showing them off to you guys. The last one is so complex I can't even tell you everything that's in it. I just absolutely recommend, and again, you know my channel, I don't recommend things I don't use or I genuinely don't like. Check this thing out. Go to the website and look up the Pangea Ultima. This does more than I can explain. It genuinely, it has preamps in it. It has an IR cab sim loader. It has effects in it. It has, you can basically do a gig with this thing and do a gig well. Seriously, I mean, this, again, why the Russians beat us into space. This is just nuts. So I really encourage you looking at it for the size of this thing and what it's capable of doing. Just one other thing to let you know what's coming up with it, and again, makes it incredibly impressive, is you can actually flash the memory on it and change its entire format, change the internal routing of it. You can address how this routing goes to which piece. It's unreal. Even the website doesn't really address all the capability of it. I talked with Ivan, the the rep that I deal with through AMT, and he must have gone on for a half an hour just explaining all the things that could be done with this, and we still didn't get through all of it. So that's going to be really impressive. That one's going to take me a little while to get into and really get my head around. So as soon as possible, I'll get that review out. But there's a lot to cover in that. But I really recommend you check that one out. For what it is, it's a deal, and it's basically an effects board in that tiny little Snickers-sized thing. So really incredible stuff. And as always, thanks to the awesome patrons. It's always appreciated, and much more coming up for you guys, so I hope you're going to enjoy it, definitely. Chris Chen, Brooks, Carol Zamasinski, Marcus Orth, Power Surge 5000, Chris at Deathless, Stephen Becker, Kevin Toole, TJ, Rob T, Bottom Dweller 5, D-Rock, McCaffoo, Icky, Ryan Huggard. I love you guys. Thank you so much. Really hope you enjoy what's coming up, and another live stream coming up soon for you. So, with all that out of the way, let's get to some myth busting. As I've covered in strings and talking about strings before, this is just garbage on its face. There have been some of the most phenomenal bass sounds ever that haven't taken this route. Geddy Lee and how he went to a thicker, more bottom end kind of larger tone later, especially if you listen like Russian Rio, things like that. The guy's using 90 and 95 gauge strings on his bottom. He's in standard tuning. Again, I'll always pull out the example of Doug Pinnick from King's X. Has one of the most massive low ends anybody's ever heard in a live situation. And he's using 105 DR strings. That's insane. I mean, the guy's tuned to like C and B. So it's about how you make your tone. It's using heavy strings isn't a bad thing if that's what you want, but it's not necessary for it. So much more goes into it than just this. And I find this thing is usually pushed by engineer/guitar players that seems to be kind of the big thing in metal. It's the, guitar player/recording engineer/producer guy. And basically what they want out of bass every time is kind of a aggressive sounding just underlayer to make their guitar sound better. And they figure the heavier the strings, the better it is. And also it's for some players a little easier to intonate. So it gives them less headaches as far as production. And you got to stop listening to them. This is, again, just garbage on its face. And part of this also is going to feed into myth number 2. Crap again. Crap upon crap. And crap that comes from the same guys I talked about in part 1. It's usually from these guitar/producer guys who just have this lockstep thing where, in the early 2000s, everything they did was, PV 5150 with a Mesa cab, with a 57 mic, with it, it's just become the orthodoxy of it. If you're going to sit here and just absolutely hammer onto a string, especially if you're playing with a pick, here's something that they don't seem to take into account is hitting that hard is you very likely are pulling the note sharp constantly. And again, I'm not saying that, if you're an aggressive player, do your thing. But it's not necessary to get a good tone. They're always, beat the hell out of your bass, pick as hard as you can, really strike it. Go back and listen to some of my videos, check out, other tones. I constantly have people asking me how my tone is so aggressive, and I play with my hands. I have a more aggressive tone than almost any pick player I know. It's not necessary. It's just the simple way they've found to get to that route. So they're going to try and push it on you. And it's just not the case. You can get a really good, solid, aggressive sound with controlled playing, and that's what it takes. Controlled playing. And the benefit to it is, in the long run, or in the short run as well, when I'm done playing, I know that I didn't sit there and punch my bass all the way through a take, and now half of it may have to be either pitch corrected, or I've got to duck it in because, the fills sounded out or something. Control, good sound, good technique, that's all you need. You do not have to beat the hell out of your bass in the studio just to get a good performance. Myth busted. You like the sound of a specific speaker. A lot of people I know will say like, well, I like the sound of a 15, or I like the sound of 10s, or I prefer 12s or something like that. No, you don't. You like the sound of a specific 10. You like the sound of a specific 15. There is no inherent sound to any one of those speaker sizes. Judging a cabinet or a purchase you may be making based on the size of the speakers in it is going to lead you down the wrong path. I've heard 18-inch speakers that were surprisingly kind of mid-driven and sounded almost identical to some 10s I had heard. I've heard 15s that were punchy and tight and sounded like maybe even 10-inch or 8-inch drivers. I've also heard 15s that sounded like mud and sounded like even worse than the biggest 18 I've ever heard. I've heard 12s that sound like 15s. There is no rule to this. There's no basis to the 12s have a sound, 15s have a sound. Judge by your ears, not by the speaker size. People who tell you that 10s have a certain sound, 15s have a sound, things like that, they're the same people who do what unfortunately most of us tend to do at a certain point, and that is hear with their eyes. Got to stop doing that. Go by the sound of the cabinet. And that makes a difference too. It's not just the speaker size, it's the cabinet that it's in. It has a radical effect on the overall tone. So don't judge with your eyes. If something sounds new, cool, hot, or best of all, reasonably priced, always check out what it really sounds like. Just because you loved a 15 before doesn't mean the next 15 is what you should be looking at. A 410 that has that same type of mid-drive that you enjoy could be the way to go, and you're going to wind up being disappointed if you buy things just based on you think you like a certain speaker diameter. It's not the case, and it's going to lead to tone disappointment because you may have wound up with some 10s that sounded even better. So, number 3, myth busted. Do I even need to say it? Wrong. All active pickups do not make every instrument sound the same. As you know, if you watch the channel, I use EMG. Huge fan of their X series. It's what I use on all my basses. I have 9 different basses that have EMGs in them. I have 9 different sounds, distinctly different sounds. I have a Riot bass that sounds completely more mid-driven than my SLS does. My SLS bass sounds deeper, more scooped, and has a sharper high end than my Hellraiser does. My Hellraiser is warmer sounding, and they all have the same pickups. It's people who, again, just get into this stupid brand stuff, and I don't like active pickups, I don't like EMG, I don't like this, I don't like Seymour Duncan live wires, I don't, whatever it is. It's just the stupid brand loyalty, team playing crap. I can hear the difference in between 2 basses in the same series, even with active pickups. I could pick up another Riot bass, and if that chunk of wood just sat differently or the way it's assembled or whatever, I could hear the difference between those 2 basses, even with active pickups. So there is no such thing about actives making all your basses sound the same. To me, it'd almost be nice, because if you landed on it, then you know all you have to do is slap that set of pickups in any bass, and you have your tone. But it's very cool to have a wide variance of things, and so if you have a brand of active that you like, don't worry that it's going to crush your instrument or it doesn't let it shine through. It tends to be, the boomer dudes who, all think everybody should be playing a 57 Les Paul or, something ridiculous like that. And there's no truth to it. So be aware of it. Realize that if you don't like a sound of actives in your particular bass, it may be your bass too. You may still like those pickups, but they just aren't right for that bass. So choose wisely. Wrong again. Being an absolute gear fanatic, I've gone through more basses than I care to mention thus far, and I'm still buying them like crazy and love going through them. And scale length can help in determining how a certain sound is, or especially the tightness of a B string. That's usually what it's about. Everybody wants, a B string to sound good. And it can help. You're more likely than not at certain gauges to get a better B string or nicer string tension, but it's only one of a number of factors. And a lot of people race this down to just this one item of like, oh, I got a 46-inch scale neck, and that means I'm going to have the ultimate B. Doesn't mean that. I've played 6-string and 5-string basses that have been 34 scale, 35, 36, 37, and 39. Not all of them, being the longer ones, sounded better or as good as some of the short ones. I had one of my favorite basses of all time, and I still kick myself for selling this one, was I had a Tobias 6-string back when, before Tobias was bought by Gibson. A fantastic, beautiful bird's eye bass, 34-inch scale, and it had, to this day, still one of the best B strings I've ever heard in my life. Phenomenal sounding. And if you want a bass that's really under the radar, really underlooked at, and is a phenomenal buy, one of the early PV6 strings, I want to make sure I get the series right. It's killing me. It's not the Grind and it's not the Cirrus, but if I remember it, I'll put it in the comments below. But there was a specific series, and it had a 34-inch scale. One of the best sounding 6 strings I've ever heard in my life. Genuinely. The TL series. There you go. TL5 and TL6. Absolute gold mine. Phenomenal basses. Neck through. High quality. And it's the build overall that did it. It's the same as the Tobias. They had a lot in common, actually, in their build. The TLs can be had at a song for what they are. Genuinely. But I've played 36 and 37 scale basses that didn't touch the sound of those. Absolutely. I've also played 36 and 37 scales that were just astounding in how good they sounded. It's only one part of the elements. Like I said, I've got 134 5-string. Most of the Schecters I play are 35. They sound great. I would say my Schecters have probably the best B strings I've heard in a long time. They're all just standard 35s. I've got 136, and for me, it's more about how it sits overall. It doesn't sound necessarily better than the others. It sounds as good, but it gives me a couple options as far as string tension and things I like. I also have a fan fret bass that I've been messing around with, and I can get some interesting things out of it. It does some good things as far as the tension and everything, but even though I may like it, and I'm hoping to get some fan fret options, and I'm talking to even Schecter about it, if I didn't ever get it, I wouldn't feel like I was missing out, or this great, detailed, amazing thing wasn't being supplied to me. It's about the bass's construction from top to bottom. So saying you can only have a good B string or good tension on extended scale, or you have to have, again, going back, it's usually these producer guys, you got to have, a neck that goes into the next room and these telephone cables strung up your bass and everything. That's all crap. It's about the bass. Don't predetermine it. You never know what you may get. Try a bass out. And again, PVTL series, 34 scale 6-string basses will knock you out. 35 scale Apocalypse, Hellraiser Extreme, SLS, Riot basses, Schecter. Boom, done. Best B strings on the market right now at that price point. Absolutely. So scale is just one thing. It can help. It definitely will. But if the bass doesn't have that, don't shine on it because it may be so well constructed, it's just as good as all the other stuff. So, myth number 5, busted. So that's going to do it for this Metal Bass Monday. I'm really psyched about all the new stuff coming up, the gear demos, things like that. And tell me, would you be interested in a longer solo or instrumental performance being transcribed and, some of it being put here and some of it from my patrons so that you could play along and learn it and, get some stuff for yourself out of it? Let me know if that'd be something interesting, and what myths have you found about bass, or things that people have told you and seem to tell you on a regular basis that you know are just garbage. Hit me up with them in the comments. Maybe we'll do a part 2, and I'll take your comments and stick them in there, because I love hearing from you guys. It's always cool. So until next week, and the new series starting, I'll see you then. Wait! Don't go! You never know. Moments like this are crucial. The next video you watch could change your life. And it might be this one, or even this one. Are you willing to take that chance? I don't know. Check them out.